In order to understand programmatic advertising completely, we have to understand how it started and how did it evolve to the current state it is in. And we have to understand a bit about what used to happen before programmatic advertising and what kind of problems did it solve? Why did it boom? This way you will have a complete understanding of all the terminology used in programmatic advertising, types of programmatic advertising, the tools which are commonly used in programmatic stack, as well as all the stakeholders and parties that are involved in this ecosystem. In any online advertising ecosystem, there is always at least two parties involved. One is called the advertiser and one is called the publisher. An advertiser is a company who want to advertise about their products or services. They want people to know about their products and services. So they are willing to pay to show their ads to people. An example of this would be Nike. It can be a small company like Nice Furniture and maybe SLN Real Estate who sell apartments and villas. And they have a marketing budget which they want to spend so that their information and their ads are shown to people. On the other hand, a publisher is a company who own inventory, who own websites, who own apps. Now you'll be asking me, okay, Nike has a website as well, but the Nike website or Nice Furniture website or SLN Real Estate website, what they primarily, their website contains is information about their company or their products or their services or offerings. And people go there to buy or know about this company and what they have to offer. On the other hand, a publisher owns websites and apps, but their business is content. They create content. People go to their website to consume the content. It can be a news website, it can be a game website, it can be a blog. Even Facebook has a lot of content, though it's created by people, but people don't go to Facebook to know what Facebook has to sell. They go to Facebook to consume content. They go to bbc.com to consume news. The advert publishers, they have a website or app as well, but their main business is the content they have on their website. And in their content, they have something called ad inserts or ad slots available. So for example, I go to certain blogs to know how to fix a problem in my computer. That is their content. But between that, they place something called ad slots and they charge for it. So all of these are examples of publishers: bbc.com, YouTube, Amar's blog. So for example, if Nike goes to bbc.com and tells them, we want to show our ads on your website, Nike is willing to pay the money. Advertisers pay the money, and publishers, they charge money because they sell the ad slot, and these ad slots are called inventory. So these are the some terms you have to remember. So before programmatic advertising, what used to happen is there were a lot of big websites like bbc.com, and there were like a lot of big advertisers like nike.com who wanted to advertise on these websites. But how the transaction of this inventory used to happen is, there used to be a marketing team at Nike who would approach the sales team at bbc.com and tell them, we have a summer sale coming up. Can you advertise? Can you show our ads on your BBC website? Or what used to happen is, if Nike wouldn't approach BBC, there used to be a sales team at BBC who would go out and approach all these advertisers like Nike, Samsung or whatever and tell them, listen, we are from bbc.com, we have a lot of inventory, we have 100,000 users coming to our website or 1 million users from United States or this particular country. We know you are operational in this country. We are willing to give you inventory. Why don't you advertise on our website? These are our charges. So there used to be a lot of legwork involved from bbc.com sales team who would approach all these advertisers. And once they agree upon a deal, they used to have something called IO or an insertion order, which is still used. This term is still used in programmatic advertising. They would sign this contract about, okay, these are the dates, these are the number of ads we will show, and these are the prices, and they will sign this something called an insertion order. But there was a lot of involvement from BBC and Nike, and generally it would be only possible if their offices were in the same city or country, or they have a connection, they know each other, they used to call and sign physically this something called insertion order. And initially it used to be a hard sell, honestly, for bbc.com to find these advertisers willing to advertise on their website, because most of the people used to watch TV, they used to listen to the radio, and there was a boom of outdoor banners which big advertisers would advertise. But what happened is slowly the eyeballs started to go towards the digital platforms. People started using different kind of websites. People spent a lot of time online. They used to go to social media websites like Facebook, YouTube, and a lot of work used to be done online. So Google and other websites evolved, and a lot of focus moved from TV to online. And when the advertisers realized this, because marketing is all about getting the attention of the users, and you market your products and services where the eyeballs are, where the people are. So when people started moving online, all these advertisers, they started slashing their offline budgets, which they used, marketing budgets, which they used to spend on TV, radio, magazines, newspapers. And a chunk of their marketing budget started going to online. It started growing, and at the moment offline advertising, it gets less revenue than online. So online took a lot of marketing share from all the companies. And when this used to happen, there were a lot of third-party companies beyond advertisers and publishers, companies like Google, who kind of solved this problem. So this third party, what they did is they created online platforms where they could connect these advertisers and publishers. Now, the BBC team does not need a huge sales team, or the marketing team at Nike does not need to know all the publishers so that they can give them a call and ask them, we have a campaign. And these platforms were called ad networks. Now, how they changed the game completely is because it was easy for advertisers and publishers to connect and run campaigns on their websites. And the second thing they did is the advertisers need not to know all the publishers who they want to advertise with. These third-party ad networks would tell the advertisers, listen, we have 10 more publishers in our list. You can advertise on their website as well. Along with BBC, we have these 3 publishers where you can run the ads. They are good, they are authenticated, they have good inventory, they have a lot of users coming to their website. Now, the Nike does not have a problem with running ads on these publishers, because initially they would think, okay, we send them in insertion order. Maybe they don't show the ads, they lie to us, or things like that. But ad networks acted as guarantors, and companies like Google, who these advertisers trusted, they acted as guarantors as well as an escrow, because the ad networks and companies like Google will tell the advertisers, listen, unless they show your ads on the guaranteed number of times, we are going to count that, because they had the technology to actually count if these publishers showed the ads or not. And they told Nike that we'll only pay them once they actually serve your impressions. Until then, we will not pay them. Sometimes the publishers were based in other countries. All of this was handled by these companies called ad networks like Google. So it became easy. But it became easy for the publishers as well. So there was a rise of websites. That is when the blog boom came, because everyone wanted to create blogs because it was so easy to monetize. Meaning, if you have content, if you have traffic coming to your website, it's easy to monetize. You join, you become 4th publisher, you join the ad network, and they get all the sales, they handle everything, and they kind of bring you the advertiser. Now, with the few big ad networks like Google AdSense or Yahoo, and so there were some other companies who created these ad networks. But with the rise in this, because every year the advertising spend online would be double. Like initially it started with, let's say, 100 million. And then next year there were research done and they said, okay, this year this industry became a 200 million industry, 400 million industry, 800 million. And with rise in revenue, and obviously there was a drastic shift of people from offline to online. So the advertisers started spending online. There was a rise in ad networks. So every company who was involved in technology came up with their own ad network. So Yahoo came with their own ad network. So for example, Seismic came with their own ad network. And companies like this, a lot of companies created their own ad networks. For example, currently, Facebook has their own ad network. Twitter had their own ad network. So with the rise of these ad networks, what basically used to happen is these ad networks will approach to websites and tell them, can you be part of our ad network? Let's say BBC went with Google ad network. And there were a lot of blogs, let's say blogs, millions of blogs who joined Yahoo as their ad network. And there were other, let's say, websites thousands and thousands of websites who joined Seismic, who became part of Seismic ad network. And these ad networks still exist. For example, Google ad network is called GDN, which is Google Display Network. So an ad network is basically a collection of all the websites who have joined that particular ad network. So GDN, which is Google's display network, is collection of all the websites who have joined Google Partner Program. They let Google to show ads on their website. So for example, if there is a blog who have partnered with Google Display Network or GDN and allowed GDN to show any ads on their website, and Google in turn pays them. Google charges advertisers. It takes a percentage, let's say 30%, and gives 70% to the blog owner. The percentages vary from country to country. So this is the simple business model of an ad network. But now the same problem happened with advertisers again, with rise of so many ad networks. And generally all these websites, they stayed in silos. For example, if advertiser Nike wanted to run ads on this blog, BBC, this website here, so they needed again to have deals with all these ad networks. So there were hundreds of ad networks. So it became a problem again for an advertiser. And that is where a new kind of platform was created by these companies, which were called ad exchanges. So now what used to happen is what ad networks did to websites, they collected them under one banner. The same thing these new tools called ad exchanges to these ad networks. So what happened is these ad exchanges, again created by the same companies like Google, and the ad exchange by Google was called AdX before, which is short for ad exchange, but now it's called Google Ad Manager. They just changed the name like few years ago. Before it was called AdX, if you hear that. But they are primarily called ad exchanges. Now what they did is these ad exchanges connected these ad networks all together so that Nike has an option to have a campaign set up on these ad exchanges, and they have access to all the ad networks. But one thing to remember here is, while ad networks are directly connected to these ad exchanges, these ad exchanges gave an option to publishers, big publishers like BBC.com, Wall Street Journal, that you can join our ad exchange directly. You don't have to come via an ad network. And to connect to these ad exchanges, they created special softwares called SSPs, which would connect these publishers directly to the ad exchanges. This is called SSP because it's short for supply side platform, which means these guys, publishers, have supply of inventory. They have supply of ad slots, which they want to sell on ad exchange. Ad exchange is again a software, it's a server where all the buying and selling happens. For example, if you know about trading, let's say you want to buy stocks of a company, what do? You go to a particular platform, let's say Robinhood or Charles Schwab or eToro. You go to such a platform. It's like a trading platform where all the buying and selling happens. Some people sell there, some people their stocks, and some people buy the stocks. It's like a complicated software. Similarly, ad exchange is a complicated software where all the advertisers come to buy inventory and all the publishers come to sell inventory. Now these guys are selling, they supply the ad slots and ad inventory. That's why this platform was called supply side platform. An example of a supply side platform would be Google's DFP, which is double click for publishers, or Seismic SSP. There are a lot. Even the big ones, there are dozens. Now, similarly, for the advertisers, Google said, okay, to connect to our ad exchange and take part in the inventory buying process, they gave them a platform called DSP, or which is demand side platform, because this platform is used by advertisers who have a demand of ad slots, who have a demand of inventory. They demand inventory and these guys supply. So that's why it's called DSP, or demand side platform. An example of a DSP, the most popular one is DV360. And this was called DBM before, which is short for double click bid manager. Google keeps changing all the names, like DFP became Google Ad Manager, DV360, DBM became DV360, because they were actually owned by a separate company called DoubleClick. and they were acquired by Google, and for a few years they kept the same names like DoubleClick for Publishers, DoubleClick Bid Manager. Now the names have been changed. And the second example would be TTD, or the Trade Desk. It's probably the second biggest DSP after DV360. Now what happens is Nike can use any of these platforms or DSPs, and they will still have access to all the websites and all the ad networks, because these DSPs help Nike connect to the ad exchange, any of the ad exchange. Even if Nike uses Trade Desk, it still connects to all ad exchanges. The only differentiating factor for a client or an advertiser to choose which DSP to choose is mostly that what kind of algorithm they use to kind of run campaigns, and what kind of algorithm they use to optimize the campaigns, audience selection, inventory selection, and all those things for automated campaigns. Rest, they all do the same thing. So overall, the programmatic advertising ecosystem evolved in something like this. On one side, there were advertisers like Nike. On the other side, there were publishers, which involved websites and a lot of ad networks as well. They were connected to this entity called ad exchanges, where actually all the buying and selling of inventory happens, and these advertisers started connecting to ad exchanges via DSPs, like publishers connected via SSPs. And with evolution of programmatic advertising, when we reached this stage, that is when programmatic advertising, this term, became mainstream, because now everything was automated. The publishers would automate selling their inventory, the advertisers would automate their buying the inventory through this ad exchange. Everything was done using these tools. That is when this type of ad buying and selling was called programmatic advertising, because all of this was done through programs. If somebody asks you, what is programmatic advertising? It's a mode of buying and selling inventory. If you use it, if you buy using a DSP, if you sell your inventory using an SSP, that is what programmatic advertising is. The alternative for that was, before, these publishers and advertisers used to meet physically and have insertion orders. All of this was automated and was done through these programs like DSP, SSP, ad exchange. That's when this was termed as programmatic advertising, and that's when this term became mainstream. Now, with the innovation in ad tech space, there were certain companies, what they used to do is they collected data about user behavior. For example, if you go online and you are checking reviews about a particular phone, let's say iPhone 15 or Audi or any other car or any product at all, these platforms, what they did is they collected all this user behavior information, and they used to sell it to advertisers. They would go to Nike. Are you looking for people who are interested in sneakers, and run your campaigns and target only these people online? Or they would go to Samsung and tell them, are you interested in people who were researching about flagship phones, who have high buying power, and they are looking to buy a phone? Now, these advertisers were obviously interested in them, because with so much inventory available with programmatic advertising and ad exchange, it was hard for them to filter who we should target our ads to or who we shouldn't. Because if they get this kind of data, then they have limited amount of people and they can spend all their marketing budget on them. And companies like Oracle created these platforms called DMPs, which is data management platforms. The point was they collected only these cookie IDs and device IDs, and they provided this to the advertisers, and the advertisers plug this to their DSPs. While they were setting up the campaign, they would buy these DMP access or seat IDs from companies like Oracle and plug it to their DSPs. Now, one of the example of DMP would be Oracle BlueKai, which is one of the biggest, or Lotame. So this is what DMPs do. By the way, I have a dedicated course on DMPs, what DMPs are, how do they work, and even walkthrough of Oracle BlueKai platform if you are interested. And now advertisers were happy. They had this data about users, so they had very targeted campaigns and they plugged it into this ecosystem which were called DMPs. Now, with so much money flowing, advertisers were having targeted campaigns. They were spending a lot of budgets on their online advertising using these DSPs. So there were some companies on the publishing side who saw this opportunity, and we started seeing cases of something called ad fraud. One of the examples of ad fraud would be there were companies who set up something called click farms. They would have hundreds of mobiles connected to one particular device, and these devices will refresh their own website. For example, I create a website or an app, I have these click farms. On all these phones, I will have my own website refreshed every minute or every 30 seconds. And obviously there were some ads which these ad exchanges will show on my app, and these phones were programmed in a way that they will click on these ads. And these ad exchanges started thinking that, okay, this is a very good publisher because people there click a lot. The CTR on these websites is high, and they started trafficking more ads towards these publishers. But it was actually a fraud. And when these advertisers realized that we are spending a lot of money is going towards fraud, because you cannot check, there are thousands and millions of websites created every day. So for that, there were specialized companies called verification vendors. And what they did is these advertisers connected them to their DSPs, and while their campaigns were running on these DSPs, these companies were specialized to check that all the ads that were shown on publisher website through this DSP, they would do verification that whether it was fraud, whether it was served. For example, if they want to run the campaign in only US, they would verify that when a particular publisher served an ad on their website, it was basically in US. For example, there was a company or a website launched in, let's say, Nepal or Bangladesh or Germany, and they think that a lot of advertisers want to show ads in US. What they would do is something called domain spoofing. And for ad exchange, it would think with the domain spoofing, the ad exchange would think that this publisher is getting traffic from US, so they would redirect a lot of ads. But these ad verification vendors checked all of that. And also, for big advertisers, it's very important that they have their ads served on websites which are brand safe. They don't talk about, let's say, nudity. They don't talk about gambling. And that also, these verification vendors developed these capabilities to have a check on all the campaigns which run through DSP when they are connected, and they would give reports to the advertiser that, okay, everything was fine. If there was an ad fraud or a problem with the website, they would report it to advertiser, and the advertisers would block that. And they did such kind of stuff. And one of the example for verification vendor would be IAS, which is Integral Ad Science. Or there were other companies like, for example, Double Verify. These are some prominent ones, but there are a lot. And now advertisers were happy for a while again, but now there was one problem. For example, iPhone as an advertiser has a campaign of iPhone 15 launch. They run hundreds of campaigns targeted to different publishers. They run hundreds of campaigns targeted to different markets in different languages. Now, with all those campaigns running in the DSPs, they didn't have much control. For example, one of the examples, there are many examples, but one of the examples would be if Apple thought that, okay, there is some problem with the ad and they had to replace this ad. After the campaign went live, they had to go and check with all the hundreds of campaigns they have set up and change it all there. For that, there were some specialized softwares created by companies called ad servers. And the job of these ad servers was just to host all of the ads which these advertisers wanted to run in their campaigns. For example, in their DSP, they had multiple campaigns running, but they did not upload the creatives in DSP. They uploaded in these ad servers. They were specialized servers just for hosting the creatives. They also do some other stuff, like they help them in cross-channel reporting and a lot of things, because these evolved as well. One of the examples of ad servers will be CM360, which is owned by Google, and it's called Campaign Manager 360. Now, it itself is a huge platform. Someone who works on Campaign Manager 360 only can have a career in it, and there are huge ad ops teams in every company. These people who generally work on these ad servers are called ad ops. Let's say ad ops executive, ad ops manager. And I have a dedicated course for Campaign Manager 360, which is also part of the complete programmatic advertising course I was talking about. And these are the main stakeholders when it comes to programmatic ecosystem. But there are obviously a lot of vendors. For verification vendors, there are some prominent ones. DSPs, there are a lot of DSPs available in the market. DMPs, there are a lot of DMPs available in the market. For every country, there are a list of prominent ones there, the mostly used there, and that is what makes a landscape or programmatic landscape in each country. For example, I will try to show you one or two for countries so that you understand who are the main players when it comes to DMPs, ad servers, DSPs in a certain market. However, on the publishing side, there were certain developments as well. Now, the publishers were mainly app owners and websites. For example, Candy Crush. It's an app, and they also are a publisher because they are capable of showing ads on their app. With the rise of online and streaming, there were certain companies who created online streaming platforms, and those channels are called connected TVs or CTV. And even platforms like Netflix, they recently started testing advertising on their platform in certain markets. And there are a lot of these connected TVs. For example, BBC, CNBC, all of them have streaming services. And they plug these streaming services as well to their SSPs. And advertisers now had access with this stack to run ads not only on websites and apps, but on these connected TV as well. And these kind of campaigns are sometimes called programmatic TV. And similarly, websites like Spotify and other audio platforms also connected to these SSPs. They had their own SSP accounts, and advertisers starting targeting their campaigns, audio ads on these platforms, and it's called programmatic audio. And recently, few years ago, if you see the digital out-of-home screens, for example, if you go to the malls, you see those screens there, digital screens, even they are connected to these SSPs and ad exchanges, and that is called digital out-of-home. And you can buy these campaigns, digital out-of-home, through DSPs as well. For example, if Nike wants to run ads on the digital screens in Dubai Mall, they can buy this using their DSP as well, and that is called digital out-of-home programmatic. And I have a dedicated video on digital out-of-home, and you can watch that. I'll put the link in the description below. So this is mainly how the programmatic advertising ecosystem looks in 2024. Maybe there are some new platforms which will arise, and we will see that maybe in the updated version of these videos. And I hope this is clear. And now we are going to discuss that what kind of deals do these advertisers and publishers have through programmatic ecosystem. There are only 3 types of deals they have, and it's very, very important to understand those. Now, the type of deals that happen between a publisher and advertiser are to be understood from a publisher's perspective. The first one is, of course, PG deals or Programmatic Guaranteed. It's called Programmatic Guaranteed because the publisher guarantees a particular number of impressions or how many times the ad will be served on their website from a particular advertiser. For example, when Nike goes to publisher, let's say BBC.com or Wall Street Journal, Nike tells them, listen, we have a campaign, we want to show 1 million impressions for the next 1 month on your website. Can you guarantee that? Now let's say publisher BBC.com has 10 million impressions available, and they'll be like, yes, we guarantee that, but this is the amount you will have to pay. If the publisher is not able to do those 1 million impressions, then the advertiser will be quite unhappy with them, and the publisher would probably have to give a lot of rebate, or the advertiser will not work with them next time because they were not able to achieve the impression target. But before publisher sets a PG deal, what happens is they check their inventory and something called inventory forecast, where they forecast because they don't exactly know how many impressions they're going to have in next 1 month. They can look at the trends and kind of predict. That's why it's called forecast. Because the traffic can go up, the traffic can go down. That's why it's called inventory forecast. They do the inventory forecast, and if they think that it's safe to commit to 1 million impressions with Nike, they set up something called a PG deal or Programmatic Guaranteed deal. That's where guaranteed word comes from, because the number of impressions is contracted. And they make a lot of money on this because they sell the premium. They sell it on a premium price. And obviously they reserve the best inventory on their website, like the home page top banner, not the bottom one. So the premium inventory, the most visible inventory, they reserve for such deals called PG deals. And that is the first type of campaign that is run using this. And if both the parties agree upon the price, the rate and everything, what happens is the advertiser will set up a campaign in their DSP and initiate a negotiation with publisher. They, using their SSP, will agree, they will negotiate to and fro only using these two platforms. And once the deal is established, the campaign flows and it starts serving. They set up the campaign in their platform, they set up inventory in their platform for this campaign, and that is what happens. This type of deal is also called one-to-one deal because there is only one advertiser, which is, for example, in this case, Nike, involved in this. And this inventory or this deal was established between the publisher and only one advertiser, because this part of inventory will be only available to Nike. That's why it's called one-to-one deal. And remember that publisher makes the highest number of money from here because, for example, they will say, we charge $20 for every 1,000 impressions because they guarantee the number of impressions and it generally has premium inventory. Now, in almost all the cases, BBC will have 10 million impressions available. They will sell like maybe 3 deals like this, let's say 3 million impressions. They're still left with 7 million impressions, let's say, for the next 1 month. Now they are not getting, their sales team will reach out to advertisers through these platforms or through emails, but at the end they still have a lot of inventory left which will not be sold at these premium prices, and they will not always find advertisers for all their inventory, except maybe, for example, on New Year's, because all the advertisers want to run New Year's campaign. Sometimes these publishers have completely booked all their inventory using these kind of deals. And whatever is left from this, for example, what these publishers are not able to sell directly through PG deals, the leftover inventory is called a remnant inventory because it was not sold via a direct deal. This type of mode is exactly what replaced the old traditional way of these marketing teams talking to the sales guys or sales guys approaching them and having a fixed IO or a fixed insertion order. And now all the remnant inventory left with publisher because they want to sell as much as possible. Now there are 2 more ways which programmatic ecosystem provides publishers to sell their inventory. The second type of deal, and they are in terms of priority. This is what publisher wants. They want to sell everything through PG. If they don't, then they go to the second method, which is called PMP or private marketplaces. Now in this case, what happens is all the leftover inventory BBC has, they package it. For example, they combine all the ad slots on their sports page, all the ad slots on their business page, and then they go to relevant advertisers. For example, they'll go to a trading platform. Listen, we have these ad slots on our business page which are unsold. We don't want a commitment. We will not commit a number of impressions, and you don't commit a number of impressions, because in the previous case, if Nike books 1 million impressions with them, even if Nike does not have an ad or they don't want to go live with the campaign, they will still have to pay for them. It works both ways. But in this case, what they do is they create these kind of packages and then they go to good advertisers and relevant advertisers. Let's say, for example, they'll go to top 10 trading platforms and tell them, listen, on our business page, we have some inventory left. Why don't you do one thing? We will provide it to you as a PMP deal, which is private marketplace, and there are 10 advertisers like you, or 12 or 50 or 2 or 7. If you wish, you can use it. You can target your campaigns on this PMP. You don't guarantee anything, we don't guarantee anything. And this is sometimes called one to few or one to many deal, because the leftover inventory in PMP, there are multiple advertisers like Nike who have access to this and they can show their ads here. The only ask from BBC to these advertisers would be, listen, we have something called a floor price. See, guarantee deals we sell at $20 CPM, but this we are willing to sell anything above $5. This is the floor price. What you do is, whatever you are willing to pay above $5, but not less than $5, you can bid. But among all the advertisers who are bidding above this floor price, $5, they can take the inventory. For example, let's say along with Nike, there is Adidas, who has access to this PMP because they established a deal with the publisher. They bid $5 exactly because that's the floor price. They bid $5.5. They are willing to pay extra, and all the inventory will go to Adidas until they consume everything. Then Nike will get the preference in this kind of inventory. And obviously they make less dollars in this because this is, for example, $20 and this is the floor price is $5, and generally it's the same range. And for a PMP deal, what happens in the background is the publisher creates these packages of inventory. Their sales team goes to all the advertisers, reaches out to all the advertisers via email, and then they provide them their DSP seat ID. They push it to them, and only the advertisers who have access to this PMP, they negotiated that we will send a PMP, only their DSPs can run campaigns on this inventory or these kind of ad slots. And advertiser generally, when they set up a campaign on DSP, they have one campaign guaranteed with certain advertisers, and they have other campaign which is targeting a PMP deal. The advertisers always create campaigns with these kind of combinations. Sometimes they want to commit with some publishers. With some publishers, they'll only run on their PMP inventory. With the publisher's perspective, they cannot sell everything with PG and PMP. They still have some inventory left. Okay, Adidas and Nike, they have 7 million impressions. They consumed, let's say, 1 million. They consumed 1 million. They still have 5 million impressions left, which nobody bought using PG or PMP. Now, in that case, what publisher does is they have a third way of selling their inventory on programmatic platforms, which is called OA or open auction. Now, whatever is left, because this gets the highest priority, this gets second priority, whatever is left, they tell their SSP that whatever is left, sell it at whatever price we can get. In open auction, all the advertisers, everyone who's using a DSP can bid on this particular inventory, and that's why it's called one-to-all type of inventory selling. And in open auction, there is no floor price, there is no fixed price. Whenever somebody goes to their website, and if PG deals are consumed, PMP deals, all the advertiser impressions are consumed, now what BBC does is this open auction inventory goes to SSP, and SSP knows that it's an open auction. There is no PG advertiser, there is no PMP advertiser available now. What it tells Ad Exchange to sell it to the highest bidder. So any advertiser who has a DSP can buy this inventory. In open auction, let's say there are two advertisers. Whoever is bidding highest will get the impression. If there is only one advertiser, whatever he's willing to pay, they will sell this inventory. And this is the one that makes the least amount of dollars for them. For example, maybe $1.2 or something like that. And for PMP and open auction, because in this case, there are few advertisers willing to buy this inventory, and in this case, there are a lot of advertisers willing to buy this inventory. Whoever bids the highest gets the impression, and it all happens in real time. And that's why these two modes are also called RTB or real-time bidding. That's what real-time bidding means. So that's honestly all about introduction to programmatic advertising. If you want to learn a specific platform or overall many tools, we have programmatic advertising section on our website where you can go through different courses and choose to buy whatever you want. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you so much. I will see you in the next one.